again, hearing your comments, your feedback, your thoughts tonight, and then moving forward, working together on this project.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, I can, with your permission, go through a brief presentation on the zoning aspects and why this is before you. Logan, I'd like to go to the council variance attachment. It has a narrative I can go through, and I can talk a little bit generically first about the proposed site. The site is obviously fairly uniquely situated across the street from the Kroger store. But obviously we are nestled in with the church there, along with some residences that are on Euclid. And of course, there's the Uncommons, which is on High Street. This tract is currently occupied, and we can show some pictures later, with a 35-unit multifamily unit.
Excuse me, it seems like would it be better to go through the pictures and the, orientation and the concept before the details of this?
Yeah, if, let's see if you can go ahead and we can do that.
I think it's better to present the concept and then say but in order to do this, we need to have X, Y, and Z variance kind of thing.
Okay. He may have to go to a different attachment to get the street level views. Okay. Here you go. This is a massing study that basically shows the frontage of our property. The Uncommon would be to the left. Obviously, the church sits between our proposed structure and the Uncommon, and you can see the Kroger parking lot. Does that help with orientation?
Yeah.
Yeah. As the massing structure indicates, the initial proposal, and those are some inspirational images that we'll get into later with the architects. But we're proposing a dense multifamily project with the market trends the way they are in Columbus. I'm sure you've heard perhaps ad nauseum about the severe need for market rate housing in Columbus. I'm sure members of your commission have familiarized themselves with the 2050 report that indicates that we're coming up about 8,000 units a year shy in meeting demand, just based on current property or population projections. So the idea is to gravitate to the density, and we think this site is unique in that it's about 100 feet east of the regional mixed use district on High Street, which allows for the 72-foot heights and the unlimited floor area. From a zoning standpoint, we are in the R4 district, and when we get into the zoning variances, you'll see that because we're in that residential 4 district and we're changing to an apartment residential district, there's a number of variances that are required. These units will be 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. The actual mix, Logan could give you subsequent to my presentation, or maybe he's doing it right now. So the bottom line is that as we go through this process, it's been my experience that you need to have a number of these conceptual meetings to actually get a handle on what the project's going to be. But to that end, Matt, we did submit the zoning application and the council variance application to the city. We've got some initial feedback. You'll see that I think probably one of the most significant issues is going to be traffic and the parking variance that we're seeking. We're seeking to provide some incentives for the residents here to not use automobiles, and that'll be a more detailed discussion later because of the perceived lack of parking in the neighborhood. But that parking variance will have to get reviewed by the city's parking czar, and they now have a detailed parking study that we're required to do. This is a permit area, so we're assuming that the residents are going to have most of the available on-street parking. Our residents would not be eligible for those permits, to be clear. So those numbers may be skewed in such a way that it affects our overall development plan. Similarly, traffic access is going to require a traffic study that will keep the civil engineers busy probably for a couple months analyzing the access for the site. And we'll have to get the blessing of utilities and certainly the fire department on emergency access and things of those nature. The other thing I'd say generically about the project that's noteworthy is that there is a commitment, as my client indicated, to qualify in the opportunity zone for the benefits there. You have to hold the asset for a 10-year period. I did not do the uncommons, but during the pendency of another hearing that I had at the university area that lasted a long time, I did hear a lot of the neighbor comments about perceived problems there. Sometimes that happens when those properties are flipped. I don't know for sure that the original developer of the uncommons flipped it, but that's my belief that maybe that happened. And I'm not casting aspersions on the uncommons, but I do know it's been a hot button at some UAC meetings for some issues. And but the fact of the matter is, when you have a commitment to hold the asset for 10 years and you've in fact already acquired the property, Mr. Chairman, we realize that, we're going to have some long discussions on this, but we're up to the task, and we're really not going anywhere. But 20% of these units would be workforce housing, which is considered a branch of affordable housing. It's people that are at 80% of the adjusted median income. Maybe 10% of the units would be for the 80% of the AMI, and the other 10% that we have pegged out now would be for 90% of the AMI. Generically,
Is that I'm sorry, is that AMI for Wineland Park or for the city of Columbus?
Okay. Mr. Chair, you want me to respond to questions? I will, or we can save them to the end. That's a good, very, very good question.
Elizabeth, yes, we'll let her go.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my understanding is that the AMI is based on census tract, but it's further my understanding, and there are lawyers who do nothing but this, Elizabeth, so I don't want to get out of my expertise. But it's my AMI for these projects, and it's been quoted at around, I believe, 55,000. So you figure 80% of that or 90% of that would be the average 80% of the AMI. But these are numbers that I need to get with specificity, and we've got other counsel that will be handling that aspect of it. But for purposes of the concept meeting, I thought it was important to know that we are asking for 188 of that would be workforce housing. I didn't want to get too much prerogative of the chair because that's what brings us before you. But is that good? Okay, and then maybe we could wrap it up with the architect going through some what I call inspirational images of what we'd like to see here. And then I'll try to keep you on a time limit. I'll try to go through it quickly. If you, Logan, go back to the council variance. And actually maybe the site plan first, I apologize. Okay, so that's pretty boring, actually. That just shows you the orientation of the perimeter of the subject site as it sits between 7th and Euclid, and you can see you can see the resident. You can see the residents to the north there, and obviously the church is to the left as you're looking at the screen. If we could go down to the council variance, the narrative part. The site is less than an acre. It's about 0.85 acres. And I've already described where it's situated. Let's get down to the council variance application, Logan. Larger. Okay, thank you. The area is in the UDZO, and as I mentioned, we are about 100 feet from the regional commercial district, and a lot of our variance is predicated on the fact that we think with the nature and extent of the development that's happened in the neighborhood, that we can fit in at that density. We've tried to follow the guiding principles of UDZO. And then if we could scroll down, the base zoning is R4, and we are rezoning to the apartment residential district called AR3. For that reason, we need a number of variances that are specified here. And they have to do with the fact that R4 anticipated far less dense development than what we're proposing. But even the development on site, the 35 units, is well in excess of the R4 density. So it's a non-conforming use. And that was in the planning staff's comments that we received. But the density, it says in the R4 district that you have to be 700 square feet. In the AR3 district, we're at 1 unit per 192 square foot of lot. Similarly, with the maximum lot coverage in the R4 district, generally the residence takes up about 30% of the lot, and then the rest is might have ancillary structures, but the primary building is usually 30% of the lot. Here we've got an 80% lot coverage, which is fairly typical for development of this density. The parking is a significant parking variance. It is predicated on a number of issues that we believe apply to the site. But under the R4 district, there is a fairly complicated formula. But when you run the numbers at our proposed units, the required parking is 251, and we are proposing providing 74. And I do think that that will probably be one of the biggest bones of contention as we proceed through the process. And again, we are still putting together the parking studies that will determine whether or not that's a viable request or if it needs to be modified. As is common, the front setback, they generally like to reduce that to 0 feet. Here we are reducing it to 4 feet. Again, number 5, the building size, square feet. Obviously, our structure is over 100. $30,000 square feet. Referring to the mix, we are at 3.7, and the building height. Again, in the High Street corridor, you can go to 72 feet, sometimes a little bit higher. And we've requested here initially, apparently 77 feet. The structure would be 7 stories. Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the legal mumbo jumbo, but there was questions last night about, how can you argue an economic hardship when, it's such an expensive development. There's under the law, there's use variances that require that type of hardship, and there's area variances, which have a totally different standard. All 7 of our variances are area variances, and as we continue to meet, I can go through the standards for what area variances are and the tests that's used to determine whether or not you have a practical difficulty and whether they would, these variances should garner support. But again, I think it might be helpful to turn it over to the architects to show some pictures of what will be some of their inspiration going forward and to keep us on so we have reasonable time for input from your commission, civic association, and anybody else as you see fit. So Carl, do you want to show?
Yeah, well, we did have the chance to introduce Logan. So I don't know if you want to take a quick second to introduce yourself, and then we can kind of jump into some quick discussion here.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Logan Luzader. Pleased to present to all of you today. I'm an architect and a project manager at Klein Design Associates. Been there for a little bit over 6 years, and my specialty at the company is multifamily with the concentration in some of these more dense urban sites. So before we kick off the precedent images, I've got the building massing on the screen right here. Carl, if you just want to take a minute just to talk about some of our initial concepts, then I'll go to the precedent images and talk a little bit about how we would forecast that we would integrate some of those into this building.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, we found it. What's the context? The things that we know we'll need to study, we talk about. Again, this is just a study that we're kind of playing with, and we'll do multiples of these. But we're just sort of understanding that we've got parking at a base level that's covered, and then we know that basically this massing is shown. We want to break the building down. We've got this idea of this courtyard, some sort of relief, so there's an outdoor amenity space for the residents, but it's also a way to break. We're showing demarcations is what floors are, and what that is telling us is that we've really got to work at how to articulate scale and appropriateness and all kinds of sort of design moves that will create something that's not the big box, but that has, again, a sense of place and streetscape and all of those things. So again, as we've said earlier, most of what we're here for tonight is to show you a little bit about kind of just that we're starting the process, but that we know that we've got input and work to do together. And this is really just the initial of us just getting started with this whole, process together. So appreciate you guys sort of understanding that. And then I'll let Logan sort of talk about some of what we call kind of precedent imagery, which is, again, some kind of inspiration for where we, would like to sort of have some discussions continue.
Thanks, Carl. So what you have before you is I'm going to present a couple of pages of, like Carl mentioned, some precedent images, which start to convey some ideas about the architectural character for this project. So we were, really studying buildings that had some really rich, nice materials like masonry that come down to the ground, expanses of open glass along the base, and even extending up a little bit to really bring some transparency to the site. You can also see here that differentiation of materials as we go up the building is just not, something that wants to be a big monotonous block of pieces. Jogging in and out, creating some rhythm across the site, but also starting to break down the scale. And you're going to see that across a lot of these images. And we can go back to any of these at any time if you guys have questions. All of these are essentially trying to convey the same idea.
Logan, it's probably important to kind of note too that some of these images are buildings that are way larger than what we're talking about, and some are in the same sense. So it can be kind of confusing to look at some of these and sort of think about
What?
but the idea that there are it's the elements and the ideas of them as opposed to necessarily the size of what you're seeing as an image.
I have a question.
Cool, go ahead.
A lot of these images have like bump outs, and which I know it's just a preliminary site design, but your site design is very boxy, and I guess I'm trying to understand how you can get the number of units you want in while doing scale backs, or are you thinking about bump outs?
What's a bump out?
Like where, like cantilevering over
something like this right here on this image.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Basically, Elizabeth, it sounds like you're saying the massing model looks very boxy, right? And there's not any setbacks or bump outs or whatever on it. But I think that's massing doesn't really have that level of detail. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, that's a great point, Mr. Chairman. And Elizabeth, that's a really great question. What you're not seeing here is the fine articulation, you know, the windows. This building doesn't really have a lot of character yet. It's just showing a general shape, and just trying to get the idea that these are the amount of floors we're looking at. We're looking at doing some type of structured parking at the bottom, a courtyard here, but you're not seeing all the balconies that are eventually going to be here, all of the windows, the different materials. And we've actually started to take this a little bit further. So I'm sure in the next meeting, you're going to see some ideas and some concepts that are quite advanced from what you're seeing here. This was just part of the initial rezoning package.
okay, I get that. And I appreciate you guys coming and talking to us. But so you're thinking about balconies that are going to be overlooking people's backyards?
No, the balconies would be more focused mainly on this area. So they have views to downtown and then down into this courtyard.
Okay.
And then on this backside, the characteristics of the building are going to change.
Okay. The other thing I know it's a preliminary drawing, but the scaling is like inaccurate on Euclid Ave. Like what you've scaled on Euclid Avenue isn't accurate to what's actually there, which just makes everything harder for neighbors to deal with. But I'm going to stop talking.
Well, that's, you know, again, Elizabeth, thanks for the comment. These are kind of like I say, these are like early. I mean, typically we might not even show this except just in our, just as our design team working. But as we kind of get further into the process and getting more accurate information, because we're like at this point for this model, we're kind of taking things off of some GIS maps and all, but we'll get more detailed and more accurate as we kind of move forward. But that's a good point.
So do you guys feel like you're done with your presentation? We can move on to the discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Let's see who wants to comment.
Would you like me to leave the screen up, or do you want me to stop the screen share and just open the forum?
Somebody might want to reference something in your presentation. So if you could.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to leave it up. And if anyone wants to go to a specific image, just let me know. I'll be happy to navigate there.
I have a comment actually that relates well to that image, and that is, I want to say that in a general sense, I am skeptical of the argument that we're 100 feet from the boundary and therefore the boundary should be expanded to where we are. The reason why the extended height was allowed along High Street was to keep that kind of development along High Street. And there's no point in having boundaries on a land use plan if being adjacent to the boundary or just on the other side means that you get to assert that it's appropriate for the height on one side to be the height that you get. If you look on this particular image, once a building is built of the scale that you're talking about, all those houses that are on the other side of it, which is a beautiful intact residential block, are going to be at risk because the value of them is going to be minuscule compared to the value of what could be done with those lots. And so I think I'm just prepared to argue. I completely understand that density needs to be increased in Columbus and housing needs to be added. But I think to go from a 2 to 3 story development to a 7-story lot coverage is extreme.
I would echo that.
You could double the density on that site and not come anywhere close to this scale. And it would be much safer for the surrounding architectural fabric.
Yeah, I would echo that, Laura, because like the same example, the same reasoning is being used in German Village for the Giant Eagle redevelopment, that people are saying the site is across from German Village Historic District, which has architectural guidelines. So therefore, because it's close, it should also essentially mirror the German Village architectural guidelines. Well, no, that's not how boundaries work. The boundary is there for a reason. You can't just say because it's close to a boundary that it's essentially the same. And the point of the High Street District and a lot of these other, or the UDO overlays, is to frame the space between the main street and the first alley as special and unique. Well, this is past the alley. It's different. It's when we start stepping back into the neighborhood, as we say. So that argument, I don't buy. I'm pro density, but that argument, I don't really buy it. So any other comments, or Laura, do you want to move off of that, or?
I have a few.
Go ahead, Donna.
No, I have a few comments. The first is all of your slides say student housing, and I also heard that this was student housing, but you addressed everything as multifamily, and they're two different things. So what are we looking at really here?
Good question. Go ahead, answer, architects, or?
I'm happy to answer that one. We are programming this more in terms of a multifamily development. Traditionally, as I think of student housing and most purpose-built student housing developments, you have an abundance and a majority of 3, 4, even 5-bedroom apartment units that are often rented out by the bed. Our programming is such that we have 80% studio and 1-bedroom units and 20% 2-bedroom units. Now, being where we are in location and proximity to the university, we have to recognize that students are a tenant base. So, we keep that into consideration. But we do think we're sort of in an interesting position of being, both close to the university and close to the Short North District. That has influenced our design decisions.
Can you just
So,
recap the unit mix, please?
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that for you. So the project as proposed right here with the 188 units would be composed of about 43% studio units, and the size of those is just short of 500 square feet. Then there are 2 different 1-bedroom units, which composes about 36% of the project. And those sizes are 530 and 560 square feet. And then there are 2 different 2-bedroom unit options, which are just short of 21% of the project. And those are 800 and 1130 square feet respectively, with the average unit size of about 570 square feet. And then the question of beds came up also. So those 188 units would comprise 211 beds or bedrooms.
This is Riley Gooseby from 7th Avenue. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I got several things that I'd like to speak on. I'm starting first with the issue you're talking about design, and I spoke last night. You have a building that's on High Street that's uncommon, that's 6 stories high, and you go back to your mass picture there that you have building massing, and then you have this building that you're proposing to be 7 stories, and notice how our church sits right in the middle. Where's the architectural design there? But I'm gonna take it a step further. In 1994, when we got ready to do building here, to redesign our building, we had to go before that same area commission that you spoke of last night. Their presentation of what they suggested to us was take down each brick by brick, clean it, put it back, because we want to keep the architectural design, the integrity of Wyland Park in place. And you put up building images a moment ago now that you didn't show last night that does not even come close to the images or to the design and the integrity of Wyland Park. So please tell me, how does that fit? But I got some more and I ain't done. So address that first, please.
Well, I think to your point, I mean, we hear your point, and that's why this process of working through, looking at context, looking at other examples and other locations.
If you don't mind, put your images back up that you just showed about all these different new with the windows and the outlays and that you just had. You just had them up a moment ago. Put them back on the screen for everybody to see so they can visualize it. Because there's nothing in this area that looks like that. So go ahead, put those back up for us, please.
I think they're up.
They're up.
Okay, I can't see them.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, they're up, Deacon Gooseby.
Yeah, again, I hear, you know, I hear what you're saying. And I got it. That's why we're having a dialogue. We're getting, you know, this is the first time we've talked to you.
No,
So it's
it's
the first
not, because
time
you
we've
spoke to
had.
me last night.
Well, I understand that, but we're all in this, starting this process together. So, you know, that's why we're listening to you. You know, these are the first times you've seen these images, which is true. So kind of getting your response and talking about that, it's, you know, we're opening a door for dialogue. So I appreciate what you're saying, and that's
So,
that's why we're here.
okay, sir, since you had those images right there, why didn't you present them before the commissioners last night so that they could see those images?
Well, actually, we had this presentation was here. It just didn't get shown. And I can't, that's why we wanted to make sure we bring it out tonight and we start showing and talking about all this.
Yeah, but we don't have any commissioners, technically, we don't have many commissioners of the area commission that really makes the decisions and have some authority and some say so. We don't have that many people present tonight.
Well, I
So wouldn't it
believe,
have made sense to present that before all those people on last night?
well, Mike,
If I could,
yeah.
Carl, you know, I acknowledge your comments last night, sir, that you were obviously sincere and to the point. You know, when we presented last night conceptually to the University Area Commission Zoning Commission, you know, we went through the basics, didn't get the opportunity to share the pictures, but we're going to be right back there next month and the month after that, and maybe the month after that. So, you know, tonight we thought it would be important to share these. I made the decision last night that it was taking up too much time and that we ought to cut to the chase with the presentation. I've been in front of that commission several hundred times in my career, and it's the first time I've been in front of this association in probably 20
Okay.
years.
I'll grant you though.
So I know that we need to reach out to the pastor and to the church. My partner gave me a contact person to do that, and they'll be hearing from us in the immediate future. And we want to share some ideas with them and hear from them. And we'll keep you on top of those discussions as they happen. Maybe you'll be involved. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
We're
without a
not-
doubt, I'm gonna be there.
We're not gonna, you know, we're not closing the door to anything now, and we're just trying to introduce ourselves so that we can let you know that we're here to work with you. So that's all I
Okay.
got, and I understand you have a lot of things you want to say, so I'll shut up. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna come back, and you said you're gonna be there the next month and the next month, and you can guarantee if the Lord's willing, I'm gonna be there with you every step of the way. But I'm going back to where we were again. Last night we talked about parking issues, and yet it still seemed like we kind of poo-pooed that under the rug, like that's not an issue. It's an issue right now. Parking is an issue right now in this neighborhood, and yet it's like, oh well, it's no big deal. And I know you're not uncommon. But we've had this solicitation happen before. We've had all kinds of promises made that we're gonna be brought to the table, and a building 6 stories high was built, and we was never brought to the building. They never came and talked to us. So what make us think that you're gonna do anything different?
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Okay, so
And I
you're
spoke of it last night. The word that y'all don't want to hear, gentrification. You just got through talking about, well, this is going to be affordable income. And I asked the question last night, affordable income to who? The people live in this neighborhood? Oh yeah, you're going to make a mint off of it. But what about us that live here and serve here? I said the same thing last night. What about us?
so
Your building is going to be big and it's going to be a monstrosity, and yet and still, what about the integrity of those that live here now?
okay, so sir, the first concern you have is that the building doesn't
I
match.
got a lot of concerns.
Okay, so the first would be the architecture doesn't match Violent Park. The second would be perhaps gentrification. Third might be parking. Is there another concern you wanted to voice?
Yeah, affordable income. How you gonna propose for people who don't have a whole lot of money to live in this neighborhood that's living here? Because we've seen a whole bunch of them forced out right now.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Might I ask, you know, the residents that make up the existing buildings, what type of, you know, mix up do we see presently in those buildings? And are we going to see similar type of make up with the new building?
I can answer that. Right now, we are predominantly students.
I think his
But,
question
but
was,
predominantly students don't live in this neighborhood.
No, I
I-
mean the buildings that are going to be demolished, like are those, I don't believe that they're all just student
No.
housing.
No, there's a
Mm-mm.
lot of low income Latinos that live in those apartments presently.
Sure
any-
do.
And have
And
been
there's a
there
fair
for a
number
long
of married,
time.
young married students who live in those as well. So they are technically students, but they're veterans and their spouses. So they're not your normal 18 to 22-year-old undergrad.
And I run into them just about every day while I'm up here at the church. So I know that there are more than just students. There are some students that live there, but that ain't the majority of the makeup of the complex.
No.
This is Susan Colbert. I was called, just to piggyback on that, what will become of those families that are being displaced as a result of this building?
Will they be offered apartments at a rate that they can afford in your new building?
Good question.
So I haven't discussed any of that. That's
Why
probably.
not, sir? Why not? You're displacing families that have lived there for a while, generations maybe. So that should be something that should be, I feel, a priority in your planning. What to do with the families that live there in Wyland Park, who make up a diverse community that it is.
Because
Well-
I can tell you that in this neighborhood, we are flexible in terms of density we want to see, et cetera, but we want to see you come our direction in terms of our concerns, which is take care of the neighbors who are there, understand
Exactly.
what kind of people are living there right now, and tell us how they're going to be accommodated in your new building.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
can tell you right now that
My
no
name
one
is
who
Miss
lives there-
Dixon. My
No
name
one
is Miss
can-
Dixon, and I have the same concerns being here for 66 years, getting ready to be 67. To me, you should have talked to the church before you even went to anything else. Second of all, that will fit in the community by itself. So my vote is no.
well, we're not,
Well, let me just
but
let me just say something tonight because I didn't get an opportunity to speak last night. My name is Pastor Roby, and I am the pastor of 7th Avenue. And I appreciate Deacon Goolsby speaking as he has, because looking at this diagram that you set up, pretty much it puts our church out of view. We are one of the lead stakeholders in this community. And a lot of the questions that are being posed about what's going to happen to dislocated people, what's going to happen in this regard, is the housing going to be affordable? We are the entity that folk are going to come to with those needs as a result, essentially being dislocated. And it's very appalling to me to look at this diagram and see the church is even more out of visibility than it was with the Uncommons. Because to tag on to what our deacon said about the Uncommons, they made all of these promises about the parking that they were going to do, and that they were going to work with us on this parking. And then after we agreed, then what happens is there's no parking. We had a long-term agreement with the Kroger company long before I came here in 2009 as pastor. Commons we lost that relation many years it was, but our church tonight, it was mentioned by one of the commissioners, well, the church doesn't have any parking. You know, it's like we're being dismissed, like we're not important. And what you need to understand about the urban community that is made up predominantly of African Americans, the church is one of the key elements that keeps the community vibrant. And this is something that I said even when we had the collaboration, when they were doing things, you can hear a mouse squeak because it's like I had said the wrong thing. Now, as a result of what's happening with this development, 7th Avenue is being left in the dark. And it's not fair to us because now we sometimes have stresses among our leadership team trying to figure out how we're going to provide parking for our people. You know, you all talk about that times are changing and that parking is not relevant. Well, yes, it is. It's very relevant. And what we had to do because of these parking permits is we had to go and talk to the people who put this parking permit thing in place to fight so that our elderly and disabled could have parking, free parking on Sunday morning in front of our building. That's appalling.
So Pastor Roby,
we-
how does this
Now-
project impact your parking?
Well, because last night they talked about that they want to build this building and something or other about the neighborhood of 200 plus parking spots, but they want to get a variance down to 70 something parking spots. Yeah, all this is going to do is create even more hardship on our church. You know, everybody wants to do development, and development is fine. But as it was stated, it's like the church has to just accept whatever happens. We just keep getting boxed in tighter and tighter, and we're supposed to accept that.
So
Well, we don't
are you losing parking? I'm genuinely confused.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Got it.
yeah, in a sense we are.
In a sense, or are
We
you losing
already-
parking?
We
You already have.
How does this project reduce the number
Already-
of parking spots?
We already have little or no parking, and
On the street.
because it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge on the street, just like it already is. It's going to be even worse.
Okay, so you're not losing any parking,
You want me to just leave it on? Leave it on.
right? You're not losing any parking spots because you don't have any parking spots.
But did the
No,
church
no.
lose their ability to utilize, because Uncommon has been using Kroger as their overflow, as has the development north of Euclid, that people are parking in Kroger's lot. Did this cause Kroger to change their relationship with the church?
Exactly.
The church I grew up in,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they even started towing us before they even told us that we couldn't use it anymore.
And I have a letter documentation from Kroger's with the agreement that was formed in 1976, allowing us to have parking use. And I've used that all the way up until the past couple of years.
Okay, this project's not related to Kroger.
But you just said, are we
is.
going to lose
It's right
parking
across the
spaces?
street
And
from
that is
Kroger.
definitely relevant to that. We will
I'm
lose
failing to
parking
see-
spaces on the street and the parking spaces we've lost at Kroger's because of this development.
Okay,
So this is,
Particular project, but this project is coming at a time of cumulative impact. And so unfortunately, it is an issue with this project because cumulatively, there have been changes that have been negative. And I have to say, it's disappointing to see a massing study that shows the church just being blocked in, because the simplest thing in the world to me would have been, show us something that doesn't make the church look like it's being shat on, you know?
Right,
Not
right.
that complicated.
Hey, developers, does this have to go in front of the UIDRB architectural review?
Yes, it does.
Okay, wow, that's gonna be a long process for you. Okay, so we understand parking is a concern. We have been talking about this for a long time. I really want to wrap it up at about 10 minutes. Anybody else want to talk?
Well,
Michael?
yeah, I
Michael?
still want to hear what's going to happen to the tenant. No one.
Sure. I did want to make a suggestion on that. I mean, you could do a good faith show of effort, potentially providing some, I mean, I hate to suggest it, but a security deposit for future apartments for the current tenants, something nice to know that you care about Wyland Park residents, because it's probably unlikely that many of them would be moving in. I'd like to move on from that.
Mr. Chairman, but let me interject there. That's
Okay,
good
sure.
for you to say, but they didn't say that. What you said is worthless. Until they say that, well, yeah, we're going to provide housing for those people that's going to be displaced. We need to hear it from them.
Oh yeah, I was
Not
just,
you.
I was suggesting it. So with this is-
Don't put words in their mouth. Let them speak for themselves. That's what they're here for.
Well, it's the first meeting.
If I may interrupt, I've not
I
asked a
understand
question yet, and I'd like to ask a question if I could get one in. I've not spoken yet.
I have a
Sure.
question. Thank you. I have a question for the developers. You mentioned the one bedroom is 500 square feet. Are there laundry units in the, is there laundry in the units, or is it a separate laundry area?
In the units.
In the units? Okay.
Unit laundry.
All right,
Alright.
great. Michael Nelligan?
Yes, I would actually like to go back to the UDZO and tie back into some of the things that we have approved fairly recently, and that over in the Fifth Ave with the intersections of Summit and 4th Streets, we've approved a number of buildings that are a fair bit smaller than this. And I would suggest that that is literally a major corridor, which 7th Ave is not. And so maybe we should be thinking about some of those buildings we approved that are more similar to the Bleecker building, which is not ours, it's actually south of ours. But just in terms of the spirit of the UDZO, I think those 4 and 5 story buildings should be considered as relevant to this. And that was all I had.
Yeah, definitely look over there at 4th and 5th for architectural inspiration. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I had,
I want to say one more thing. I had a couple comments. We pride ourselves on our front porches, so we'd like to see front porches. We'd like to see step-ups, stairs off of the sidewalks into the units, so they appear like the other multifamily houses in the neighborhood. And I think more what everybody's trying to say is that at the alley east is our community. We're not High Street, and the building is just too massive for our single family houses and our doubles and everything. So I think if you can, these other 2 houses that are east of the building are also lost in addition to the church. That if I owned one of those houses, that would be so upsetting to me. I think in the main issue is the building doesn't fit into our community as we know it.
Thank you, Donna.
Right. Yeah.
Others who haven't spoken?
This is Chris Michiki. I just wanted to make a comment that sort of Michael Wilkos commented in the chat that it looks like, is there an entrance that would is that in the middle of the building right off of 7th Avenue? This is a relatively narrow road, and it's becoming already difficult to get in and out of Kroger, in and out of the street that's just to the east of Kroger. If we put an entrance right there, and it's not even, with relation to the street in front of it, it's just going to create more of a traffic mess. And if anything, if there's going to be a parking garage or some sort of parking element to this building, that it be accessible only from the alley from the behind or the northern property, the northern edge of the property. And then, just again, like, don't want to keep reiterating, but, to the east and the west of the building, you've got, properties that don't match the scale. And if those buildings did not exist, I suppose, I'd be okay with the massing of the building, but unfortunately those buildings are there, and it looks quite odd with regard to scaling.
Can I please speak? Because I actually live in those buildings that you think are unfortunate that are there. We have a really vibrant community here on Euclid Avenue, and I'm sorry you think that we are unattractive to development. The other thing I would really encourage anybody thinking about trying to route anything through the alleys is to look at that alley. It is a teeny tiny, not very well paved alley, and there is no room. And we haven't even started talking about trash. And, I have literally hundreds of pictures of Uncommons trash. And I'm getting old. I really don't want another 1,000 pictures of dealing with people's trash that they aren't dealing with. So suggesting to move it through the alley is, I think, unconscionable. The other thing is there are families with small children who live in that shadow. So, and they have fences because they want to keep their kids safe, but adding all these people to a family neighborhood, I mean, I feel like, seriously, developers, if this is really what you want to do, you need to buy all of the houses on Euclid Avenue and just extend High Street to Indianola. I mean, if neighborhoods like Euclid have any value, this is the test, or just buy us all out.
Well, this is replacing current apartments, so it's not like it's demolishing any homes.
No, but they're very small scale. But if we're going to build 7-story buildings, Matt, we might as well get rid. I mean, that means that all the people who live on the south side of Euclid, who have vibrant gardens in their backyard, they're going to lose them because there won't be any sun.
Right,
So,
right.
Chris, I wanted to, echo your sentiments about the curb cut. When you have a chance to eliminate a curb cut, you should take it. The sidewalk deserves to be a consistent thoroughfare that's safe and not at risk for interactions for people pulling in and out of a driveway like a suburban, shopping center. So I completely think that the auto-centric entrance that you have currently needs to be eliminated, and all car traffic should be routed through alleys, which is what alleys are for. They're for servicing buildings. So that would be my perspective on that. And we can widen the alley. The city might recommend widening or improving the alley, and that would probably be a cost the developer would have to take on. We'll see what the results of the traffic study are. But this is the first meeting. So any other comments from people that haven't spoken?
Yeah, I have a comment, Matt. I actually second what you've just said about the alley widening. That would be a great route to go with the developers approaching the city in that capacity. I think it's obvious that the massing and the size of the building is way too large for the neighborhood. I hope the developer and architect consider those points. I think we're very uniform as a community on that. The next thing is for parking. I don't see any proposal or don't hear anything about your intent. You could be doing some subterranean parking. You could gain some spaces and go well beyond 72 spaces if you were to consider incurring some more cost, but you could definitely park more cars than that in that lot, in that footprint. So I think those are some things to consider. And also, even though your building is way out of scale for the neighborhood, I think you need to also consider, when you do reduce your scale, to step it down as it moves east into the neighborhood. So where you're at 3 stories on the eastern portion of the building, so you are stepping, your way back into the neighborhood. I'd like to see that happen. That's something that you're seeing all over the country with urban development, and I think you're missing that here.
Thank you, John. That's really well said. Thanks. Michael, you have your hand up. Michael Nelligan.
Only because I forgot to take it down. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Comments from people that haven't spoken? We have 30 people on this call.
Yeah, this is Neil Belair.
Mr. Chairman.
Can I speak for a minute?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This is Neil Belair from Euclid Avenue. And I would just like to agree with everything that Elizabeth said and that Pastor Roby said. And our other friend from 7th Avenue, I forget his name, sorry. I think, just the gut feeling of the residents here is that the dimensions of this project sort of ghettoize everything around it. And there's no way to look at this and not understand that all these houses that are around there and the church as well are going to be living in the shadow of a gargantuan, and this incredibly reduces the value of the properties, which isn't fair to the residents who have lived there for a long time and invested in those properties. It just seems ill-considered. And the other thing I'd like to say is that when you're looking at a unit, a building that needs 200 parking spaces and you want a variance to allow only 70 some, that's telling you right there that you should scale this building back so that 70 parking spaces is all you would need.
Got it. Thank you. Other comments?
I have one more quick parking comment, and that is I'm curious to hear in a future meeting. I think the zoning variance that you're requesting relates to a parking standard that's not the one that's in the current neighborhood plan. There's some confusion always between the zoning that hasn't been changed and the standards in the plan. So I think it would be helpful in the future if you could talk about what the standards are in the new plan and how that relates to what you're proposing.
You're referencing the 2015 UDO plan, Laura?
Yeah, new.
Yeah. So yeah, developers, if you want to take a look at that, it'd be nice if you could tell us how your proposal integrates with that plan in addition to the zoning.
Will do.
I would like to know that whenever the next meeting is going to be, they're going to present that all of us have access to it so we can participate and know what changes or ramifications or what things that they propose to change are actually going forth, because we just happened to get the postcard a couple of days before they actually had the meeting. Now, I know there's a big issue with the mail right now, but we would like to be informed because, again, we are a vital part of this community.
Yeah, good question. So first, will you guys be coming to our next commission next month or committee next month? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I anticipate that, yes, we will, and we'll be at the UAC zoning committee as well. And
okay.
I also intend to reach out to some people we've heard speak tonight in the meantime.
What is your next public meeting?
As of right now, it would be the UAC meeting, which is the night before your next scheduled meeting.
Oh, but that's the zoning committee again, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We'll be in committee for some time.
Okay, great.
Will that be sent out to everybody so they'll know?
And what are you asking for at the next zoning committee meeting?
Concept review.
Okay, so
Again. No
decisions.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't say no decisions, but maybe we'll have some slight modifications. We want this to be a work in process as we go through the process. And on behalf of my client, I appreciate everybody's comments and appreciate the stability with which most, if not all of them, were made. So thank you, and you've given us a lot of food for thought. And hopefully, in the meantime, we'll be able to reach out to those who spoke. For the record, I did work with the Euclid Avenue residents when Campus Partners did their project, which is directly north of your residential development street. And I think we were able to work things out to your satisfaction at that time. And I'll try my darndest to do the same thing here. We obviously have a very tough road to hoe, but I think my clients are good listeners, and we'll see how good the next time we meet. Thank you for your time. And with that, I'm out.
Oh, could I ask one more question? I'm sorry. Last night at the UAC, you committed to doing a shadow study. Is that something that you are going to commit to doing to the Wineland Park Civic and Housing Committee?
Yeah, and those studies aren't as useful as they are when you get to the finished product, and I don't think we're near to that. So it's something that obviously we'll take into consideration, but we need to get through a couple of these meetings where we can get the type of constructive criticism that we received tonight, especially things that Mr. Gifford said. I took to heart. A lot of the people had the same issues, and for those who are there representing the church, I get it. I understand the sincerity and severity of your comments, and we will be reaching out in the immediate future.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I do have a hard stop at 7 o'clock.
We'll see you next month.
I apologize, but I do have a hard stop. I have another hearing I have to jump on.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Yep. I guess we can end it, everybody, and not really any reason to stay on unless. Laura, what do you think as former co-chair?
Is everyone here, does everyone here typically get meeting links, et cetera, from the Housing Committee? Like,
yes.
Will this because I actually had I had a problem tonight because the meeting link that I had for Zoom was not the correct one for where everybody else was, and I figured it out, but.
Yeah, if you're here and you don't get the email, put your email in the chat and then I'll add you to the list.
Okay, and that way everyone here will definitely have the Zoom link for the next month's meeting. And I think if you want to go to the University Area Commission Zoning Committee meeting, that definitely is going to be March 1st. It's always the day before ours. You can go to both. At least in the past, that committee has listened carefully to what folks here on this committee say. And so committee chairs in the past have tried to keep in touch so that everyone in Wineland Park doesn't have to go to 2 meetings every month. But if you want to go to the University Area Commission one also, then it would be good to try and like get in touch with them and make sure that you're lined up to get that meeting link before it's too late for next month.
Okay, I only got one email.
Can you send that info? Is it possible you can send that information to everybody who's on now so that we can have it, please?
What information?
For the University
When-
Area Commission meeting?
Yes,
When the UAC meets, the zoning committee meets?
yes.
Everyone
Yes.
on right now, I would advise you to write down, it's going to meet on Monday, March 1st.
I'll put
And
it
their
back.
meetings start at 6:30. And the trick with that is going to be, you're going to need to get whatever meeting link that they're using because it's a virtual meeting, and that I cannot advise you on. But the date is definitely Monday, March 1st at 6:30.
Isn't all that information publicly posted on the
It's,
UAC website?
it should be, yes. And I believe they use a Zoom link similar to
They
ours.
use WebEx, or they use the other thing that the city uses. It's not Zoom. But it is a virtual meeting for sure.
Oh, here's their website. So, okay, and this meeting was recorded and this chat will be saved. So I think we're good to go. I don't want to discuss the project anymore. So if there's anything committee related that anybody who needs to let me know, tell me now.
So
Okay.
thank you,
so-
Matt, for a good meeting.
Thanks, Tanya. So developers, we look forward to continued conversation next month. It's the first meeting, so we're excited to get to know you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Pastor Roby.
Bye. Thanks for everybody's input.
Thank you,
Thank you,
developers. Thank you,
Carl.
architects, for